Yo, what's up guys, it's King Sean here, and in today's video, I'll be going over the Commanders 2024 draft class, the first draft class under Adam Peters. I'll be handing out grades to each and every player in this draft class, and then at the end of the video, I'll be giving out an overall grade. And by the way, this isn't the official grade for all these players for their careers. This is just based off of 1 year. In the next year or two, I'll also be regrading this draft class as well to see where each player is at in their career. So before we get into today's video, make sure y'all leave a like down below, subscribe if you're not already subbed up, and turn on notifications. And with that out of the way, let's get straight into today's video. Alright, so before I even get into the draft class, obviously got to talk about the Super Bowl a little bit. Probably just going to spend a minute on it. Obviously, we all watched it, that beatdown Philly laid on the Chiefs last night. I thought the Chiefs would win. I had a small feeling, or not a small feeling, but I had a bit of a gut feeling that the Eagles may be able to pull this one out, but ultimately, I thought the Chiefs would actually get it done, and obviously, I was rooting for them. Like, I know some NFC East fans were rooting for the Eagles to beat the Chiefs because they didn't want to see the Chiefs three-peat. Man, I'll root for the worst person alive before rooting for the Eagles to win a Super Bowl. Like, real talk, I'm not doing that. So we all know what they did last night to the Chiefs, and it was an absolute beatdown, man. Their defense was phenomenal. Jalen Hurts, not going to lie, got to give credit where credit's due. He looked really good. Saquon didn't do much last night. However, that Eagles defense, man, absolutely contained Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes threw 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 to Cooper DeJean. So they absolutely dominated Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. So, you know, congrats to the Eagles, I guess. I mean, that I feel disgusted by saying that, but hey, man, it's deserved. And this offseason, we have to build this roster up to beat the Eagles because they're really the only team standing in our way. Obviously, there's other teams like the Vikings, the Lions, who we got to go through, but we already beat the Lions. So it's really the Eagles that we have to prepare for. We have to build this roster up this offseason for years to come, and I feel a rivalry brewing between us and the Eagles for sure. Alright, so starting off with obviously Jayden Daniels, our second overall pick in the first round of last year's draft, of course, and A+, easy. I mean, I don't need to spend too much time on Jayden because you already know he was an absolute baller this year, the best rookie in the NFL, probably the best rookie quarterback season we've ever seen. The best rookie quarterback I've ever seen for sure. Jayden was absolutely incredible for us this year. Home run, slam dunk, whatever you want to call it, pick for Adam Peters. And it was an easy pick because, you know, we knew that Caleb was going number 1 to the Bears. So it was really between May and Jayden at number 2. We decided to take Jayden, and man, thank goodness we decided to get Jayden, man, because he was obviously incredible. Started all 17 games, 12-5 record, of course, in the regular season. Won 2 postseason games, took us all the way to the conference championship game. Over 3,500 pass yards, 25 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and also had 891 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. So I could go on and on about Jayden and just talk about him for like 30 minutes straight, but y'all already know Jayden was absolutely incredible this year, and anything short of an A+ would be disrespectful to give him. Next up, our first second round pick 36, Johnny Newton, and I'm giving Johnny Newton a D. Now, I have high hopes for Johnny Newton still. I still have a lot of confidence in him, and I feel like with a full offseason, he can really take a pretty big step, but he does get a D for his performance this past season. He just wasn't great. He didn't live up to that second round pick hype we were expecting him to live up to. You know, he was projected as a first round pick last draft in the 2024 draft, but he fell, I would assume, because of that foot injury, which kind of prevented him from really working out in the offseason. Like, he couldn't, you know, work out in the offseason, train, participate in OTAs, spring practices, which really limited him, and he didn't practice for a good chunk of training camp as well. So Johnny just didn't get enough, you know, reps during the offseason, and I feel like that kind of affected him because rather than training and putting that work in, he had to rest and recover and let that foot heal. So maybe with a full offseason, he can really get going and show why he deserves to be our first, second round pick, which was pick 36, right? So a high second round pick. But he wasn't amazing this year, right? Had 44 combined tackles, 6 TFLs, 2 sacks. He was not good in the run game. He was getting pushed around in the run game, right? So wasn't very effective there. At times, he did show flashes, like in the Bears game, he was really good. Had the forced fumble and fumble recovery. Pretty sure he had a sack in the Bears game as well. So he was really good against the Bears this year. And he had a couple other flash plays as well. However, he didn't make enough of those flash plays and overall just didn't have a great season. So hopefully, with a full off season, he's going to be training with John Allen a little bit. So that's good. Him and Allen are around the same size, both kind of undersized D tackles. So maybe training with Allen will help him a little bit. But once again, just for his play this year, I'm going to be grading this pick a D. Next up, we have Mike Sainristil. Mikey, man, he was so good for us this year. 50th overall pick. We traded back from 40 to acquire 50 and 53. And Mikey, he was drafted to be our starting slot or nickel. But because of the play we were getting on the outside, we had to put Mikey Sainristil on the outside. And for a guy that was playing at nickel and slot for the majority of his time at Michigan, to be playing on the outside and putting that production up while on the outside, that is really, really good from Mike Sainristil, in my opinion, man. Had 2 interceptions in the regular season and 2 interceptions in the playoffs. Both came against the Lions. He had a total of 14 passes defended, which is really good. Pretty sure that led all rookie cornerbacks. He had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery, and he had 93 total tackles. So that's really good for Mike Sainristil, man. Like, he was super impressive this year, and once again, he wasn't even supposed to be starting at outside quarterback. His natural position is slot or the nickel, and I think that's going to be where we're going to move him back to this season. But the fact that he balled out like this in his first year in the NFL as a rookie cornerback working on the outside, that's really good work by Mike Sainristil. So I'm going to give Mikey a solid A- grade, man. He was an absolute baller this year. Moving on to Ben Sinnott. He was our third and final second round pick number 53 overall in the draft last year. And Ben didn't do a whole lot this year. I would say specifically in the pass catching game, he was a really good blocker for us though. Like, he was really good as a run blocker this year and even as a pass blocker at times, blocking downfield. But in the run game, he was a really good run blocker. He even blocked for Jayden at times on QB design runs. I remember the one against the Cowboys. He had a really nice block, and it was a read option, and Jayden was able to get past the final defender, and it was because Ben Sinnott blocked the second to last defender that was right there. So all JD had to do is get past that final defender, which he obviously did, right? So Ben Sinnott, he was a really good blocker for us this year, but he does need to contribute more in the pass catching game, and it was hard for him to do so this year, right? Zach Ertz, he was a baller this year. Him and Jayden have a really nice connection, and I expect Zach Ertz to be back this year. But I do also expect Ben Sinnott to get more usage next year as well in the receiving game. How much, I'm not sure, but I do think he has a lot of potential there. You saw the fake punt in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles. That was a beautiful pass from Tress Way, and Sinnott came down with it, right? And he also had that catch and run versus the Jets in the preseason game. He had a touchdown this year versus the Patriots, or not the Patriots, sorry, the Panthers. So he has potential as a receiver, right? However, he is a really good blocker, but if he can develop into at least a decent receiving tight end, then I feel like that would be really, really good. And obviously, his contribution to the team would increase, right? But as of right now, from his play in 2024, I'll give the Ben Sinnott pick a C. However, would not be surprised at all if this pick grade increases. Moving on to our first round 3 pick 67, Brandon Coleman. And I'll give Coleman a B-. I feel like we found ourselves a starting O-lineman, one of our starting O-linemen in the draft, round 3 of the draft, which is very impressive by Adam Peters. However, I don't know where Coleman will start next year, preferably guard. I think he is a guard. Don't really want to see him back at tackle. I feel like he is a guard. He looked like a guard this year, to be honest with you. Like, a lot of his reps and plays this year, like a good amount of them, they look like kind of guard reps. Like, it looks like he'll be more comfortable as a guard, and I feel like that's where he should play. Even watching his TCU film last year, like, you could see he's a guard. Like, he moves like a guard. He has technique like a guard. He is a guard, in my opinion, right? If they leave him at tackle, then, you know, we'll have to roll with that, right? But I prefer to sign a left tackle. Like, protecting Jayden, after watching last night's Super Bowl, protecting Jayden, man, that has risen up on my list for top priorities this offseason. Like, protecting Jayden is going to be so important for our success, because if we can't protect Jayden, hey, man, we can't get far. We cannot get far, right? So protecting Jayden is going to be important. So that's why I don't really want to see Brandon Coleman at left tackle, because he definitely can be a liability. Moving on to our 100th pick of the draft, our second third-round pick, Luke McCaffrey. I'm giving this pick a C-. I did prefer a Troy Franklin or Javon Baker at the time of the pick last year. And this year, Luke McCaffrey didn't do a whole lot on offense, had 18 catches, 168 yards. The Bengals game was a pretty good game out of him. He had 3 catches, 40 yards that game. And I thought after that game, you could really start to see Luke McCaffrey get more and more opportunities, but that didn't end up being the case, right? So maybe Luke McCaffrey gets more and more opportunities as, you know, we get into the future. So next year he may get more opportunities, in the year after that, but don't think he'll ever really be like a receiver 3 or a receiver 4, maybe a receiver 3, but I honestly feel like he'll just be a guy that kind of sort of rounds out the receiving core. Maybe he can be a fine receiver 4 option who will come in at times, make a play or two, like make a catch or two. Maybe he can be a guy like that, right? But he just didn't make too much of an impact this year. And it's only his, second, third, fourth year, you know, at receiver. I think it's his 3rd year at receiver, right? So he's still a developing receiver prospect. So we'll see how his development goes over the next few years. But right now, I will be giving this pick a C-. Next up, we got our 5th round picks, Dominique Hampton and Jordan McGee. I'm going to give them incomplete grades. McGee, he only played a handful of games this year. Couldn't really stay on the field. Let me search up how many games he played this year, because I know he got injured before the year, obviously, so he didn't play until like week 8. And in the Bucks game, wild card round, he got injured, right? So we only played a total of 8 games, so that is a limited number of games, so half the season really, right? So can't really give him a grade. He had 9 total tackles, so he did get some playing time this year on defense. And I did like the flashes I saw from him on defense this year. He showed his sideline ability, his athleticism a little bit, and he was pretty good on special teams as well, right? So we know Adam Peters' histories of getting linebackers in the mid to late rounds. He got Fred Warner, he got Azeez Al-Shaair, and this is with the 49ers, by the way. So those are just 2 examples right there. Like I said, Azeez Al-Shaair and Fred Warner, right? So I do have high hopes for Jordan McGee into developing into a really good linebacker. And we got Bobby Wagner here, who I expect us to re-sign to a 1-year deal. So he'll have the opportunity to continue to learn from Bobby Wagner if obviously he resigns here. And then Dominique Hampton, he wasn't inactive really all year long, so really didn't see anything from here or from him this season at all. So I'm giving those 2 guys an incomplete grade. And then finally, 7th round pick Javontae Jean-Baptiste. I'm giving him a B. And for a 7th round pick, he was honestly pretty solid for us this year. Had 13 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. You can't really expect too much out of a 3rd rounder, or not a 3rd rounder, sorry, a 7th rounder. So for a 7th round pick to, you know, put up those type of stats, not bad. And also, he was pretty good in the run stopping game, in my opinion. At times, he showed flashes of setting the edge and stopping the run very well, in my opinion. So Javontae Jean-Baptiste, he's a guy that could round out the edge rusher core for us, and I feel like he would be really good to keep on the roster for years to come, because I did like what I've seen from him this year, especially as a back-end rotational edge rusher and a 7th-round pick. So Javontae Jean-Baptiste, I'm giving that pick a B. As for my overall grade for this draft class 1 year later, and once again, can't really grade a draft class after 1 year, but for the sake of this video, I am. But we'll for sure revisit this draft class a year or two later once we get deeper into their careers. But 1 year later, give this draft class a B. Kind of inflated by Jayden, obviously getting an A+, but I like what I saw, from some of these guys, like Mikey, of course. He was a baller. Javontae Jean-Baptiste, he showed some flashes. Brandon Coleman, although wasn't spectacular at tackle this year, he did show some flashes of potentially being our franchise left tackle. Don't think he'll end up being that. Think he could end up being a really good guard. But the fact that you found a starting O-lineman in the 3rd round is really, really good, right? We'll see what Ben Sinnott and Johnny Newton become. Obviously, we need more out of those guys next season. But overall, once again, giving this draft class a B grade. So comment down below your thoughts on the draft class from Adam Peters in 2024 and what grade you would give them after 1 year. So that is it for today's video. Hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like down below, subscribe, turn on notifications, and other than that, it's McCaffrey Sean, and I'm out. Peace.